So I'm pretty sure at this point everybody knows about the controversy with EA, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and the whole microtransaction system that they put in place where it could take up to 40 hours to unlock one character from the crystal system that they have, which is their, of course, their microtransaction currency. I was going to give my 2 cents on that whole situation, but I have talked about microtransactions extensively and what my position on microtransactions are. And since it's pretty much what every YouTube channel in the gaming community was talking about, I figured that I didn't really have anything special to contribute. But I feel like it's my responsibility as a YouTuber and as somebody who advocates for a more ethical industry. I gotta warn people about this because I'm sure a lot of people are celebrating right now. Oh my God, EA finally did the right thing. Good for them. Oh, let me reinstate my pre-order because it looks like they got rid of the microtransactions, right? Well, not quite. Let's read their whole Twitter statement that they made. So here it goes. Today, we turned off in-game purchases for Star Wars Battlefront 2. The game is built on your input. Ha ha ha, very funny. And it will continue to evolve and grow. Yeah, I am yet to name an EA game that is actually built on the input of everybody. Name a recent EA game and tell me if it really was built on our feedback. Okay, you had so many games, so many franchises that EA absolutely destroyed. And within the past few years, they killed so many different franchises. They killed Dead Space, they killed Crysis, they killed Mass Effect. That Mass Effect Andromeda game was a piece of shit. And then they killed off one of my favorite game franchises of all time, which is the Star Wars Battlefront series. So many great memories as a child. Star Wars Battlefront 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. Also love Battlefront 2. EA Star Wars Battlefront, I did not buy it when it came out. Only reason why I do have it is because I got it on sale for $10, DLC included, by the way. So I figured, okay, I think it's a good opportunity to at least check it out and see what they've done right and what they've done wrong. I obviously knew what they did wrong because I decided not to buy the game. And I was playing Battlefront, and for $10, I guess it was an okay value. But after like a few days, I just stopped really. I stopped playing. It's one of those games that has no longevity whatsoever. And it's kind of sad that a game that came out in 2015, because that's when the first Battlefront from EA came out, that a game from 2015 has less longevity than a game that came out in 2005, being Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original one. The point I'm trying to make is that if they really cared about our input, none of that shit would have ever happened. Name one game series under the EA umbrella that has actually drastically improved over the past 10 years. And I'm not talking about flashy graphics and good-looking visuals, because in the long run, when you have shitty game mechanics and your game gets boring after like not even a week, you can have all the stunning visuals you want. That's not going to save your game. So when I heard more about Star Wars Battlefront 2 around E3, I'm like, okay, it looks cool, I guess. But I really wasn't convinced that they learned from their mistakes, that Star Wars Battlefront 2 was just going to be a well-received game. Everyone was going to love it, and there was no bullshit. I knew that something was going to happen. I mean, it's EA after all. But before we comment any further on the Star Wars Battlefront 2 situation, let's read the statement from Oscar Gabrielson, the general manager of DICE. So let's read it. As we approach the worldwide launch, it's clear that many of you feel there's still challenges in the design. Well, no shit. Look at all that fucking backlash. That one comment that EA made is now the most downvoted fucking comment on Reddit with 500,000 dislikes. 500,000 dislikes. Even I could not achieve that many dislikes in my past. And I've got a lot of dislikes in the past. I'm sure you guys know about that. But let's continue. We've heard the concerns about potentially giving players unfair advantages, and we've heard that this is overshadowing an otherwise great game. So they're not even fully admitting that they fucked up. They're saying, well, you guys feel that we fucked up, so we're going to change. We're going to change our policy. But they're not actually, they still will not admit that they fucked up. They still refuse to do it. Their egos are too big for them to say, look, we screwed up big time. They're saying, you guys feel that we screwed up, so we're going to change. It's like if you apologize to someone, well, I'm sorry that you feel that I screwed up. Do you think would anyone accept that apology? No. But whatever. Continue reading. This was never our intention. Sorry we didn't get this right. We hear you loud and clear, so we're turning off all in-game purchases. Interesting. We will now spend more time listening, adjusting, balancing, and tuning. This means that the option to purchase crystals in the game is now offline, and all progression will be earned through gameplay. The ability to purchase crystals in-game will become available at a later date, only after we've made changes to the game. We'll share more details as we work through this. Now, how many fish do you guys think are going to bite the bait? I feel like a lot of fish will. And that's exactly what EA is intending to happen. By completely turning off microtransactions, completely turning off the crystal system, whatever system that they have going on, they expect that all the canceled pre-orders will start coming back because they're like, oh my god, the microtransactions are canceled. That's so great. But please, if you're thinking that, please do not bite the bait. Please do not fall for the cheese on the mouse trap. Just do not buy this game. Now, I'm sure a lot of people might be thinking, well, if they change for the better, you should reward them for doing such a thing. Except they did say in their statement that they will bring back crystals eventually. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to go back to the same old thing where it's going to take 40 hours for you to get... No, that's not going to happen. I don't think EA is stupid enough to do that. They're definitely not stupid enough to do that. But if you think for a second that the microtransactions will become fair, there's no such thing as fair microtransactions. The only time I guess you could make the case that microtransactions are fair is kind of like the Overwatch system where it's just purely cosmetic and it's not really a big deal. Like, it doesn't affect gameplay because unlocking heroes through microtransactions, yeah, that affects gameplay, obviously. But having skins and having cosmetic skins, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's one instance where loot boxes are absolutely acceptable. If you gotta have them, have it that way. But one thing that I absolutely do not find acceptable is that you have a $60 game, full price game, that on top of that you have a $50 season pass, and then you spend $110 on the game. And at this point, you can get a PS3 for that price. But that's another issue. But on top of that, on top of spending $110 to get what you think is the full experience, it's not the full experience. Call of Duty, for example. A lot of people were outraged over Black Ops 3 having the microtransactions, but it didn't really go anywhere. People were still buying it. People were still spending money on it. No problem whatsoever. Same with Advanced Warfare. They had the weapon variants. That was really the first Call of Duty game that had microtransactions in it. And after that, that's really what did Call of Duty in for me, is the fact that you spend $60, which I was more than willing to do, even though the game really wasn't as complete as it could have been. And then they also released a $50 season pass, which even then I was stupid enough to get into that also. But once they had the microtransactions and they had exclusive weapons that if you bought the DLC, if you bought the full game, you do not have access to. It's a whole nother thing that you have to pay for. And it's not even guaranteed that you'll get it if you spend on a loot crate. And that's how they get you. It's gambling. It literally is gambling. But the only time that Call of Duty got backlash was Infinite Warfare, but it had nothing to do with the loot crate system. Nobody gave a fuck about that. It's just because the game itself was absolutely shit and it had nothing to offer to the community. Nothing at all to contribute to the industry. There was no innovation whatsoever in that crap of a game. But here we go with Battlefront. It's a different system. I'd say it's a worse system than Call of Duty's by far because you have exclusive characters. It's like if Overwatch had heroes that you could only buy through loot crates. Imagine how that would go. That would not go over very well. But I'm telling you, to anybody listening that's planning on, that thinks that EA learned their lesson and that the game purchases being turned off is going to last very long, it's probably going to last for about a week, honestly. It's going to last for about a week. As soon as the game comes out and all the pre-orders that were canceled are no longer canceled and the game sales are good and they get enough good press for doing this, that's when they're going to turn it right back on. It's not going to be the same system because they're not going to get away with that necessarily. Because if they were willing to turn it off in the first place, they're probably not going to turn it back on in that same way. But if you honestly think that they're not going to have another bullshit system in its place, because microtransactions are still microtransactions in the end of the day, there's really very little justification for microtransactions unless A, it's what I said about the cosmetic thing, or it's a free-to-play game, because if it's free-to-play, they got to make their money somehow, right? So those are the only two instances where I find microtransactions, loot crates, whatever the hell you want to call it, that's the only way that I find those the loot crate system acceptable, the microtransaction system acceptable. Any other instance, absolutely not. And from now on, I'm not going to buy games that have microtransactions to the point where they have content in the game that you cannot get unless you spend real in-game money. It's like you're playing a free-to-play game. And if I'm spending $110 or $60 on that shit, I expect to get the full experience. I mean, I really should get the full experience for $60. So, really, I mean, games that came out lately that have season passes, I've skipped those ones as well. Only time I didn't skip them is when they're on sale on Black Friday or any other sale that they got going on in the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Store, whatever, and they have the full game with the season pass for like $40, $50, $60. And it's much cheaper than it was because I'm not going to spend $110 for one game, no matter what. I refuse to do that anymore. I'm not stupid enough. I'm not a stupid kid anymore that's going to blow all my money away on microtransactions. I'm just not that person anymore. I've matured, and I hope that you guys also mature. And when I say you guys, I don't mean my subscriber base, because my subscribers, I know you guys. You guys are smart enough to see the trap set up. You guys are smart enough to not buy into these bullshit practices, because most of my subscribers are PC gamers, and they're PC gamers for a reason, because they want to avoid these bullshit practices. Now, who I'm referring to are the people who have been spending money on microtransactions in the past year and think it's okay. Those are really the people who I'm talking about. You guys, you might be children, you might be whatever, I don't know, but you guys really do not realize how much harm you are causing to the industry. You really do not realize that. How much you're making gaming worse for everybody. You do not realize it. You're just thinking, oh, it's a loot crate. It's like, it's fun, because gambling is an addiction, right? And if you keep buying loot crates and buying loot crates, I think you have an addiction problem. An addiction is a huge thing, and they're capitalizing on this. It's fucked up. And I do think, I'm not a big... I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with my political beliefs. You guys know that I'm not a big government regulation guy. I don't believe in government overstepping on certain things. But I do think in certain cases the government should. And if they do have laws against gambling, because there are really not too many states in the country where gambling is legal, and there are plenty of countries across the world that have gambling banned in some capacity. And how is this not gambling? How? If you're going to have laws against gambling, you should at least have that extended to loot boxes, because loot boxes, microtransactions, any of those things, it's definitely gambling. There's no way it isn't. And this might be a debate for another day, because maybe some people might not agree that it's gambling and that it's taking advantage of people's addictions. And if you keep buying microtransactions, you have an addiction problem. But it's really the truth. It is. And as far as EA reversing their policy, do not buy it. Don't buy into that shit. Do not buy this game. They made their bed, and they have to lie in it.